Could this world just happen? No, it had to be an act of God.
All right, welcome to Bible Study, where we get to discover more about the heart of God. And today we're talking about how God is a creative God and He loves to be creative. Hi there. Are you looking for something specific?
Oh, me? Well, no. I mean, yes, of course, yes. I am looking for important discoveries.
Oh, are you an explorer?
Yes, I am a professional, as a matter of fact. Have you never heard of Explorer Aaron before? No? Well, I suppose I'm not entirely famous yet, but I will be soon. Well, I hope soon. Just between us, the discovery business has been a bit slow lately.
Well, Explorer Aaron, how do you know if you discovered something if you don't really know what you're looking for?
Well, I just know these things. I am a professional explorer, you see, and it just comes to me when things need to be discovered.
Okay.
Now, I should really be on my way to more discoveries.
Oh, well, Explorer Aaron, it's actually really interesting because myself and all of the kids are also explorers as well. Except we know what we're looking for.
What? Are you trying to take business away from me?
Oh, no, not at all. You see, we are on an adventure in the rainforest to discover the heart of God.
The what? The heart of God? Now that would be a great discovery, but I don't think you can find it in the rainforest. Plus, you are not professionals. You don't suppose God hid his heart in one of those vines, do you? Because that would make me famous.
Well, we're not really talking about the physical heart of God. We're more talking about his personality, like what he likes and doesn't like and things like that. And I think that the rainforest will show us that because God's left clues all around. We just have to know to look for them.
And you think you can find all that out here in the rainforest?
Yeah, in fact, today is actually the very first day of our adventure, and we're learning that God loves to be creative. And I would imagine that there are lots of things that would help show us that in the rainforest.
Wow, God loves to be creative? I would have never thought to discover that before, but wait, I noticed a thing. Hang on. Oh, okay. It didn't seem like much of a discovery at the time, but now...
Oh, yeah. That's a really cool picture of tree bark. It's really interesting how God creates different tree barks.
See, this is why you need a professional. This is not a picture of tree bark. This is a picture of a lizard.
A lizard? Where?
See if you can find it.
Oh, wow, there really is a lizard on there. There's one right there. Look at that little guy. Do you have more pictures like this?
Oh, yes, quite a few. Would you like to see more?
I'd love to see another one.
Okay, 1 second. I never really thought of it, but it is really amazing how so many creatures are just like their surroundings.
Wow. Yeah, there's like a little moth right there. Wow, that's really cool. Thanks for sharing those, Explorer Aaron.
But you really think these creatures show that God is creative?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. How else would you explain how they perfectly match their surroundings? It's God's way of protecting them.
Well, lots of scientists say that the world evolved over a long period of time and was not created. They don't believe in your creative God.
You're right, Explorer Aaron. There are lots of people that believe that. But I have a question. How long do you think it would take for all of the paper and ink and the colors to come together to create this picture?
Well, it never would on its own. It would need a printer and a program.
Exactly. So if something as simple as this picture couldn't happen on its own, how so much more like the insects and animals or even us? Plus, what would happen to these creatures if they were waiting around for their camouflage abilities to come in?
Well, they would be a lot easier to see and eat by birds, snakes, and other animals.
Right, so wouldn't they all be eaten while they're waiting for their camouflage to evolve to protect them?
Wow, that is a really good point. I think I'll sit and think on this discovery.
Oh yeah, and actually while you do that, Explorer Aaron, I was going to share with the kids about another animal that shows how creative God is and how he had to have created everything. Would you like to actually help me with it? I might need you to hold something.
Of course, that sounds wonderful.
Perfect, well why don't you have a seat then?
All right.
Okay. I have a really cool animal that I want to share with you guys all today, and it's found in the rainforest, and it is the giant anteater. And we have some pictures that we can show you of the giant anteater. So this is the giant anteater, and it lives in the South America and Central America, but mainly like in the rainforest of South America. And I have some really cool features that we're going to talk about today that show us that it was created by a creative God and that it could have just happened on its own. There's going to be 4 features that we're going to talk about. But first, let's talk about some facts of the anteater. Let me show you guys another picture. This one right here. So the anteater can be between 6 to 8 feet long. And Explorer, do you mind helping me demonstrate that? So we can show, because it's hard to really understand how long something is. Okay, can you grab this end here? Yeah. All the way there. We're going to stretch it out. So 6 feet is right about here. So they can be between 6 all the way to this here. 8 feet long. Wow. So that is really, really long. So they can be big. That's why they're called the giant anteater. And they have these tails that are between 3 to 4 feet long. And I've got this lovely little cutout here that shows. So a big portion of them is their tail. They've got these big fluffy tails. But they have these little tiny eyes and these little tiny ears. Even though their heads are pretty big, their eyes and ears are pretty small. Which is going to bring us to our first feature of the anteater. So because the anteaters have such little tiny eyes, they actually have a hard time seeing. And what do you think, Explorer Aaron? What do you think anteaters eat?
Well, since they're called an anteater, I think they eat ants.
Exactly, they eat ants, but they also eat other bugs and like termites and things like that. But all the bugs and everything are pretty small, and so if they don't have very good eyesight, probably would have a hard time finding the bugs that they're going to eat. And so, how would they find it? One really cool thing about the anteater is they actually have a really, really good sense of smell. So good that they're able to sniff out the ants or termites or whatever bugs they're trying to find in order to find them to eat. In fact, scientists think that anteaters can smell up to 40 times better than humans can. And let's see, I don't have a super great example of what exactly that means, but it's kind of like if you were to walk into your house and you smelled something really good cooking, like maybe cookies. If you were an anteater, you would have smelled those cookies about 5 minutes away instead of before you walked in your door. So they can smell stuff really, really good. And that's just one example of how anteaters had to be created by a creative God, and how they could have just evolved from nothing. Now, the second thing is anteaters actually we're going to talk about anthills really quick. So anthills in South America, or like termite hills in South America, are actually pretty big, they're pretty tall, and they're really hard. And so if the anteater can sniff out the ants, it doesn't do them a lot of good if they can't get into the anthills. And so, because it's not like the ants are just outside the anthill lined up, ready to be eaten. So they're all inside the anthill. So the anteater is able to sniff out the anthill, but then they need a way to get into the anthill. So God gave them claws on their front feet. And they have 3 claws, and 2 of them are long, but then the third one's even longer. And they're able to use those claws to break into the anthill so that they can get to the ants. And what's really cool also about their claws is they actually will fold in to their palms, kind of like that. My fingers were my claws, they're able to fold in, and it makes it more comfortable when they're walking from anthill to anthill. Because it would be pretty uncomfortable if they've got these long claws and they're trying to walk and their claws are getting bent. But God made it so that they had these claws in order to get into the anthill, but then were still able to walk. And it would have been pretty difficult if they hadn't developed that ability yet, or if they hadn't developed the ability for them to fold or not. And also, what if they had them on their back feet? That wouldn't be super helpful. And so that's just another example how the anteater was created by God. All right, another really cool thing about the anteater is they have a really long, sticky tongue. Because when they go to the anthill, they don't want to just tear the whole thing down with their claws, because if they tore the whole thing down with their claws, they wouldn't be able to go back to that anthill later to eat, because it would be all destroyed. So God gave them this long snout, which is what this is. I know it's a perfect representation, not exactly. But God gave them this nice long snout, which holds their tongue, which is about 2 feet long, which is about that. That's about 2 feet long or so. And their tongue is covered with the sticky saliva and tiny little barbs, which means they're able to stick that snout down in that little hole that they make with those claws. They're able to stick their tongue in and swirl their tongue around and get all those ants up, and then slurp them up and mash them with their jaws, because anteaters actually don't have teeth, they just have jaws. And so that way they're able to get a hole made and get to the ants without tearing down the whole little anthill. And that's a really specific design that's needed, because if the tongue evolved, nice and long, but the snout didn't evolve in time, then their tongue would have been flapping around and wouldn't have really fit in their mouth. But since the anteater did evolve, they are perfectly created by God, specific to have the snout and the tongue that they need in order to get to the ants. All right, Explorer Aaron, are you ready for our last little fact about the anteater?
Yes.
All right, so our last fact, which our first one was their sense of smell. The second was the claws on their front feet that can also fold to walk. And then third is their long, sticky tongue. The fourth is anteaters actually know when to stop eating. Not just that they're full, but they know that they need to stop eating at one anthill and find another one to finish eating, because if they eat all of the ants from one anthill, they're not going to be able to go back to that anthill later for food again. And so God made it so that anteaters know when they need to stop eating, so that way that anthill can rebuild and the anteater can revisit it later. And that's something that's really, really cool, because not all animals know to do that, but God made it so that the anteater would know when to stop eating. And so these are all 4 things that God created the anteater to have, because if the anteater didn't even have one of these features, they wouldn't have been able to survive. They wouldn't have been able to find the food that they needed. And so it's impossible for the anteater to have just evolved and for all these things to come perfectly together for it to survive. It had to be created by a creative creator. Well, that's all that I have to share with you guys today, and I'd love to see you all tomorrow. Bye.